And to hear them claim in their defense that I don't have any right to privacy is disgusting. They have made my wife's life an absolute misery, my lord.
She actually went, hey, ho! Look at this, there they are dancing. Does this seem like a woman whose life is total misery? Doesn't to me, does it you?
You know that specific kind of silence that happens right before a bar fight? That heavy, static-charged air where everyone knows something is about to snap? That was London's High Court this week. Only instead of broken bottles, we had barristers in wigs. And instead of a brawl, we had the Duke of Sussex, California's most famous privacy advocate, who also has a Netflix deal, a Spotify deal, and a best-selling memoir, trying to convince everyone that he's the victim here.
Prince Harry's most shocking moments in the dock, and from his witness statement today, you won't get that anywhere else. And analysis from Tom Sykes of the Royalist Substack, who was in the High Court today for every word of the bombshell evidence.
If you've been scrolling Twitter, sorry X, you've probably seen the headlines. It's dramatic. It fits the narrative perfectly. Now, to be fair, most of that didn't actually happen. His lawyers didn't quit. The case hasn't collapsed. But what did happen?
And who has violated Harry's privacy more? Is it the person who shared, the palace official who shared a little bit about the memory of his mother, or Harry telling us that he had to rub cream on his penis before his brother's wedding because it was frostbitten? So I don't think anybody's violated Harry's privacy more than Harry.
Well, let's just say Harry's courtroom performance was very hairy. We are watching one of the weirdest, highest stakes privacy battles in modern history. A prince who told the entire world about his frostbitten royal member in his autobiography is now suing newspapers for invading his privacy. You genuinely cannot make this up. This is a massive multi-claimant lawsuit involving Sir Elton John, Sadie Frost, and Doreen Lawrence, all alleging that Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, basically ran an intelligence operation on them for 20 years.
And these are the type of images that we now see put out by the couple themselves. So of course, Brittany, I absolutely fundamentally agree with you that this case is ludicrous. It is about personal revenge. He wants newspapers to be shut down. They're already dying. It's going to happen anyway, Harry. And he wants journalists who he dislikes to go to jail.
We're talking allegations of bugging cars, tapping landlines, buying police records, the kind of stuff that usually requires a warrant, or at least a villain in a trench coat. The publisher, they deny every single word of it. They say it's fiction. They call it preposterous smears. So let's cut through the noise. Let's look at what actually went down in court. Because whether you love Harry or think he's lost the plot entirely, this trial is genuinely fascinating.
I'm going to give Harry a message. This fight of your life, what did he say? Slaying the dragon slayer. Harry, you will not win this. You cannot win this. These newspapers, these media companies that you so despise will still be prospering long after you've gone, long after I've gone. So you can't win this war. It's foolish.
Let's start with the rumor that nearly broke the internet. The 9-week trial began on January 19th, 2026. Tension is high. Then suddenly, social media accounts start blowing up. The story, Prince Harry's legal team, led by the heavy-hitting David Sherborne, had supposedly stormed out of the courtroom in the middle of proceedings. The narrative was immediate. Harry is so difficult, so impossible to work with, that even the guy who represented Johnny Depp just walked off the job. Here's the reality. Nobody quit. Nobody stormed out. David Sherborne remains Harry's lead barrister. The trial is proceeding exactly as scheduled. There is no verified reporting of any dramatic walkout or resignation. So that rumor, complete nonsense.
He seemed uneasy from the moment he arrived. He didn't really settle properly in the witness box, and he came in right from the off. Harry was on the defensive and very bristly and very abrasive, and the judge intervened 3 times to try and calm him down.
But here's the delicious irony. Harry is literally in court suing newspapers for spreading misinformation about him, while the internet is spreading misinformation about his lawsuit about misinformation. It's like Inception, but with tabloids. The man cannot catch a break. Or maybe, and hear me out, when you spend years telling everyone how terrible the media is, the media isn't exactly going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Funny how that works.
Tell us that you were aware of some, but not all, of the 14 articles that you complain of in these proceedings at the time they were published.
Yes.
You did not complain, and no complaint was made on your behalf.
Not that I am aware of.
That is because you believed at the time that the articles were published in so insofar as you saw them, that the information they contained came from legitimate sources.
To a certain extent, but I would not have been able to complain about them anyway because of the institution I was in. It would have been very difficult. Never complain and never explain.
Okay, let's get into the meat of this. Why is our favorite Montecito resident back in rainy London? If you listen to the Defense Associated newspapers, this whole thing is a waste of everyone's time. Their lead barrister, Anthony White, KC, has called the claims threadbare. He said this is in reality little more than guesswork. It involves jumping to conclusions based on insufficient evidence. Ouch. They aren't just saying we didn't do it. Though they do say that vehemently and categorically, they also argued that even if they did do it, it was too late to sue. This was the limitation period argument. In the UK, you generally have 6 years to sue for privacy breaches. The events Harry and Elton John are talking about, some of them are from 1993, 2005, 2011. The defense's argument was essentially, you guys had unlimited resources and access to the best lawyers on planet Earth. Why are you only suing now? It's a fair question, isn't it? Harry wasn't exactly without means all those years. But back in November 2023, Justice Nicklin rejected A&L's attempt to have the claims thrown out. In a 95-page judgment, he ruled that A&L failed to deliver a knockout blow. The case would proceed to full trial.
I was never suspicious of Chelsea in relation to stories like this, but I was of her friend. If I saw this story at the time, I would have been very frustrated and angry. I would have questioned how Associated found out this information, but at the same time, I would have felt like I had to accept this as the reality of my life. This sort of intrusion was terrifying for Chelsea. It made her feel like she was being hunted and the press had caught her. And it was terrifying for me too, because there was nothing I could do to stop it. And now she was in my world. She was shaken and I was really paranoid about trying to protect our privacy, as the article says. Their behavior and treatment of Chelsea was not normal. I was really worried something bad was going to happen.
So here we are. Now Harry's team is telling a much darker story. They allege phone hacking, live tapping of landlines, private investigators placing listening devices inside cars, medical records obtained by deception, and corrupt payments to police officers. If true, that's genuinely horrifying. Harry's specific witness statement talks about years of paranoia. He describes relationships falling apart because the press knew things that only one other person should have known. He assumed his friends were betraying him. He cut people off. He isolated himself. He told the court he felt paranoid beyond belief. In his written statement, he said, "I felt like my every move, thought, or feeling was being tracked and monitored just for the Mail to make money out of it."
A campaign, an obsession of having every aspect of my life under surveillance so they could get the run on their competitors and drive me paranoid beyond belief, isolating me and probably wanting to drive me to drugs and drinking to sell more of their papers.
Now look, I'll be honest, that does sound awful. If someone was genuinely bugging my car, I'd be paranoid too. But also, Harry mate, you then went on to tell Oprah everything. You wrote a book, you did a Netflix series, you've been on more podcasts than Joe Rogan. At some point, the leave me alone message gets a little muddled when you keep scheduling interviews.
Prince Harry is trying to still monetize from the very industry that he's suing. He relies on the mainstream media for currency.
Now let's address the elephant in the room, the stern warning. This was the moment the tabloids were waiting for. And honestly, they kind of got what they wanted. Harry took the witness stand on January 21st, 2026, testifying for approximately 2.5 hours. The cross-examination was intense. The defense lawyer, Anthony White KC, was picking apart Harry's claims, suggesting the information came from Harry's own social circle rather than illegal sources. And Harry, well, Harry did what Harry does. He started to answer, and then he kept answering. And then he pivoted to talking about the general state of the British media and the distress it caused his wife Meghan. He was emotional. His voice cracked. He said the press coverage made Meghan's life an absolute misery. Look, it was a human moment. You could see the genuine frustration. But here's the thing about courtrooms. They're not therapy sessions. They're not Oprah interviews. The judge doesn't hand you tissues and say, "Tell me more about your feelings." Judge Nicklin intervened twice, and he didn't coddle him. He told Harry, "You are doing exactly what lots of litigants do. Your role is simply to answer the questions." Translation, "Your Royal Highness, please stop giving speeches and just answer yes or no." The media painted this as a slapdown, a humiliation. Was it? Honestly, judges tell witnesses to focus all the time. It's not that unusual.
He was asked questions, and rather than actually specifically answer them, he kept saying, it's disgusting what they did to us. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. And in the end, the judge said, look, it's not your job to emote. It's not your job to tell us here on the stand. It's not your job to tell us whether you think this behavior is disgusting or not. It is your job to specifically answer the questions you are asked.
But here's the thing. Harry has spent years saying he wants to be treated like everyone else. He's not a working royal anymore. He's just a regular guy from California. Well, regular guys get told to shut up by judges when they ramble. Welcome to equality, sir. Be careful what you wish for. If you're the defense, your job is to make Harry look like the boy who cried tabloid. And they're doing that with surgical precision. Anthony White KC said it outright. At all material times, the Duke of Sussex's social circle was known to be a good source of leaks. Translation, we didn't need to hack you. Your friends did it for free.
No idea she was a journalist. I never used the name Mr. Mischief.
Did you meet her in Ibiza?
I don't think that can be right. I don't believe I have ever been to Ibiza other than with my now wife. My social circles were not leaky. I want to make that absolutely clear. I would have to cut contact with this person.
They brought up former Mail on Sunday royal editor Katie Nicholl. Harry's side claims some of her stories came from a private investigator. The Mail counters that she got her scoops because, wait for it, Harry invited her to parties, specifically a private party at Kensington Roof Gardens in 2003. She was there, she mingled, she took notes, she wrote. If that's true, it's awkward because it means Harry invited a journalist into his life and then years later accused her paper of spying. That's not a great look, and it gets worse.
Harry also says she's a crim. Katie Nicholl responds saying, "No, Harry, you invited me to come and party with you."
One of Harry's supposed supporting witnesses, a private investigator named Gavin Burrows, withdrew his statement in 2024, claimed his signature was forged, said his affidavit was written without his knowledge. Ouch. The Mail's lawyers jumped on that like sharks in a feeding frenzy, arguing it undermined a substantial part of the case. Harry's team insists it doesn't matter, but optics-wise, brutal. It's one of those moments where you can't tell whether the defense is winning legally or just winning narrative, and in high-profile cases like this, the latter sometimes matters more. We absolutely cannot talk about this trial without talking about the book, Spare. The defense brought it up. Of course they did, because in his memoir, Harry talks extensively about his life, his drug use, his fights, his romantic relationships, and every conceivable private detail.
He's not the first member of the royal family to write a book, but he is certainly the only member of the royal family to have written a book this explosive.
The defense's argument writes itself. How can you demand privacy when you published your secrets in a best-selling memoir? Harry's counter-argument is simple: consent. He argues that there is a massive difference between choosing to tell his story on his own terms and having his phone illegally accessed to steal his story against his will. It's the difference between inviting someone into your living room and having someone break in through the window. Just because you hosted a party once doesn't mean you can't lock your doors. And legally, he might have a point, but in the court of public opinion, come on. A prince who wrote about his frostbitten private parts, his drug experimentation, and his family fights for money is now asking us to believe he values privacy above all else. That's like a professional food critic complaining that people keep asking about restaurants. The man flew in from his Montecito mansion, where he lives with his wellness brand launching wife, leaving behind the Netflix cameras temporarily, to tell a British judge that his privacy has been violated. The defense doesn't even need to try hard. The optics do the work for them.
I've never believed that my life is open season to be commercialized by these people. To act in the public interest is to interest the public. I fundamentally reject that. Having my life, like others, commercialized in this way since I was a teenager, delving into every aspect of my private life, listening to calls, blagging flights so they could see where I was going. It was a time when everyone was in competition with each other. To sit here and go through this again, and to hear them claim in their defense that I don't have any right to privacy is disgusting. They have made my wife's life an absolute misery, my lord.
Here is the problem with Harry's crusade. Even if his allegations are partly true, he's made himself an unreliable narrator of his own life. Think about it. Every interview, every documentary, every chapter of Spare tells us that Harry is the victim. The family wronged him. The institution failed him. The press destroyed him. At some point, when everyone around you is the villain, people start wondering about the common denominator. And the defense knows this. They are playing to the gallery brilliant. They know that if they can make Harry look like a professional complainer, the public won't care if some of the phone hacking allegations are true or not. They'll just want him to go away. It's brutal, but it's effective. Roya Nikka, the Sunday Times royal editor, put it perfectly on CBS News in January 2026. If Harry loses this case, it's huge jeopardy for him, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of pushing all the way to trial and not seeking to settle. That's the gamble. Harry could have settled, he could have taken some money, an apology, and gone back to California. But no, he wanted his day in court. He wanted vindication. He wanted to prove everyone wrong. That's very brave, or very stubborn. History will decide which. Let's zoom out for a second, because for all the snark, this case isn't just celebrity gossip. It might be one of the biggest media ethics trials in decades. Alongside Harry, you've got serious people here. Sir Elton John, actress Sadie Frost, Baroness Doreen Lawrence, the mother of murdered teenager Stephen Lawrence. If their claims are true, we're not talking about paparazzi being annoying. We're talking about illegal surveillance, corruption, and massive data breaches. Phone tapping, bugged cars, medical records bought under fake names. Stuff that feels ripped from a spy novel. If even half of it holds up in court, the Mail could face one of the most damaging verdicts in British media history.
He was actually quite sympathetic, and he was quite like, look, let me just tell you, your job now is just to answer these questions. Let your legal team answer the case.
The judge alone who makes this decision. So Harry, acting like an entitled little brat on the stand, is not just bad news for his own case, it's bad news for Elton John and David Furnish and Sadie Frost and Elizabeth Hurley and all of the other celebrities.
But here's the paradox. Harry might be both the worst and best person to lead this charge. Worst, because he's a flawed messenger. Rich, famous, overexposed, sometimes insufferably self-righteous. Best, because he's impossible to ignore. You can roll your eyes at him, but you can't pretend he doesn't have the platform to force these stories into daylight. And he's been surprisingly effective. He already won against the Mirror. In 2023, the judge confirmed that phone hacking was widespread and habitual. He got £140,000, plus another £400,000 in settlement. Then in 2025, the Sun settled before trial. An 8-figure payout, full apology, and the first ever admission that unlawful info gathering happened inside Rupert Murdoch's paper. Those are not nothing. So when people say Harry's just paranoid, the receipts say otherwise. Which brings us to the big question. Why is Associated Newspapers fighting so hard? Because if Harry wins again, the entire tabloid model, the dark, secretive, get the story at any cost culture, might finally crack. And if he loses, it'll be open season again.
The day before he was in the High Court, Meghan Markle released an Instagram story, and her mum was in the pool. Her daughter was in the swimming pool. Meghan was filming that and their garden. If you do not want your privacy invaded, cut off the oxygen supply for the press. They will eventually get bored.
The press will frame it as vindication, proof that the prince cried wolf. Either way, this isn't just about him. It's about whether powerful media organizations can act with impunity and still call it journalism. So as we watch this 9-week trial unfold, with Elizabeth Hurley expected to testify later in January, and Sir Elton John and David Furnish via video link in early February, let's try to remember something. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Harry is probably not the pure victim he presents himself as, but the tabloids probably aren't angels either. This isn't heroes versus villains. It's flawed people versus flawed institutions, and the outcome won't be written for months after the trial concludes in late March 2026. In the meantime, Harry will keep being Harry. He'll keep making emotional speeches when he should just answer yes or no. He'll keep flying from California to complain about intrusion. He'll keep being the world's most public private person, and we'll keep watching, because whatever else you say about the Duke of Sussex, he's never boring. But before you click off, there is another side to the celebrity privacy coin. We've talked about a prince fighting to keep his secrets, but what about the stars who are fighting to be seen only to realize the spotlight burns? I'm getting to the weird curated world of Nepo baby rebrands next. We need to talk about why the internet suddenly decided to turn on Brooklyn Beckham and what it says about our obsession with earned fame. You don't want to miss that. Hit the sub button, check your sources, and I'll see you in the next one.